Ethan Cole had never seen a planet like Velith Prime. From the moment the horizon's edge entered orbit, the desert world stretched endlessly, with golden dunes shining under twin suns. Jagged mountains rose like broken glass along the horizon, and strange crystal spires shimmered in the distance. The Velith system was one of the most dangerous and mysterious regions humanity had explored. It was also home to the Rhynathi, a species humans had studied only in reports and scattered intelligence. Ethan adjusted his uniform and glanced around the ship's observation deck. The bridge crew was tense, each officer focused on the displays showing the approach to the Rhynathi citadel. Commander Lena Harris, a veteran of several diplomatic missions, leaned over a console reviewing the protocols for first contact. "Lieutenant Cole," she said without looking up, "you'll be our lead communication officer." The Rhynathi Queen requested a translator familiar with human culture and language. "That's you." Ethan nodded, swallowing his nervousness. He had trained for months for this moment, memorizing protocols, cultural notes, and even the basic courtesies of the Rhynathi. But nothing could prepare him for meeting a queen whose reputation alone could silence a room. As the horizon's edge descended through Velith Prime's atmosphere, Ethan studied the citadel from above. It was enormous, carved directly into the side of a mountain. Towers of polished black crystal reflected the sunlight, creating a dazzling but intimidating view. The landing platform stretched like a finger into the desert below, with Rhynathi guards standing motionless along its edge. Their golden fur glimmered under the sun and their tails swayed with a quiet power. The ship landed smoothly. A hiss of air vents echoed as the ramp extended. Ethan and a small delegation of humans stepped down, their boots crunching on the crystalline ground. The Rhynathi guards observed silently, their eyes sharp and intelligent. Ethan could feel their gazes heavy and piercing. Commander Harris gave a quick nod. "Remember, keep it professional. Stay alert." Ethan followed her into the main hall, a massive chamber with high ceilings and walls that sparkled like stars trapped in black crystal. Light reflected from every surface, bouncing in patterns that made the room feel alive. At the far end, seated on a raised platform, was Queen Sarai. She was more striking than any human portrait or description Ethan had seen. Her fur was golden, her eyes like liquid amber that seemed to pierce right through him. She sat gracefully, her tail coiled around her feet, ears alert and claws tucked neatly. Around her, courtiers and advisors waited silently. The air in the hall was thick with tension and anticipation. "Welcome, humans," the Queen said, her voice smooth and melodic, yet carrying a power that made every word command attention. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Her gaze was focused entirely on him. "Your Majesty," Ethan said, bowing slightly as protocol required. "I am Lieutenant Ethan Cole, assigned as your translator and communication liaison." The Queen tilted her head, listening intently. A subtle flick of her ears indicated she was observing more than just his words. Ethan could feel it as if she were weighing his thoughts against his speech. He swallowed, trying to appear confident despite the sudden nervousness twisting in his stomach. "You may rise," she said after a pause. Her tail flicked and the council leaned forward slightly. "We have much to discuss, human. I expect honesty." "Yes, Your Majesty," Ethan replied, though his mind raced. He had trained for honesty in translation, but somehow it felt different being directly in the presence of a being who could, as the report suggested, sense thoughts beyond words. As the meeting began, Ethan translated back and forth between the humans and the Rhynathi Council. Discussions were tense. Humans spoke of trade, exploration, and alliance, while the Rhynathi spoke in formal, cautious tones about territorial boundaries, resource sharing, and the need for trust. Every sentence required precision. One mistake could cost more than a diplomatic faux pas. It could spark open conflict. Despite the tension, Ethan noticed subtle movements in the Queen. Her ears would twitch slightly. A soft hum sometimes escaped her throat, and her amber eyes followed him whenever he spoke. It was as if she could sense every emotion he felt, even the ones he tried to hide. During a short break, Ethan stepped away from the translator's table and walked toward one of the massive obsidian pillars lining the hall. He needed a moment to breathe. The chamber was quiet, and for a few seconds, he allowed himself to relax. He couldn't help but whisper to himself, almost unconsciously, "She's incredible." The words barely left his lips before he sensed a change in the air. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. A soft, low hum echoed around him. He turned slowly, and there she was, Queen Sarai. She had moved closer without a sound, her golden eyes locking onto his. "Careful, human," she purred, her voice soft, yet sharp. "I hear everything," Ethan froze. The warning was not angry, but amused. The other humans in the hall were still, watching from a distance. Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks. He had whispered, believing no one could hear. Yet she had heard. Not just the words, but the tone, the emotion behind them. Your Majesty," he stammered, unsure of what to say. She tilted her head, observing him with a slight smile. Her tail swayed gracefully, and her posture was relaxed but alert. "Honesty is rare," she said softly. "Do not fear the truth when you speak it carefully." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. Some were impressed, others were nervous. Commander Harris gave a subtle nod, signaling Ethan to regain his composure. Ethan took a deep breath and straightened. "I will be honest, Your Majesty," he said. "Always." The Queen's ears twitched again. "We shall see, human. We shall see." From that moment, Ethan felt a strange connection, not just of duty but of awareness. Every time he spoke, he felt as though she understood more than the words themselves. And he realized that this mission, which had seemed dangerous in theory, was far more complex in reality. It was no longer just diplomacy or translation. It was a delicate dance of trust, perception, and unspoken thoughts. As the council reconvened, Ethan returned to his post, more alert than ever. Every word mattered. Every gesture was noticed. And in the back of his mind, he could still hear her voice, soft but clear. "Careful, human. I hear everything." He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing: nothing about this mission would be ordinary. After the first meeting with Queen Sarai, Ethan Cole could not shake the memory of her words. "Careful, human. I hear everything." They had been soft, almost playful, but they carried a weight that made him feel both exposed and alive. Walking through the vast corridors of the Citadel, he tried to focus on his duties, but the thought of the Queen's golden eyes and the subtle twitch of her ears kept returning. The human delegation was settled into the guest chambers near the edge of the palace. Ethan shared a room with Lieutenant Karen Blake, a fellow officer responsible for security protocols. She noticed his distraction immediately. "You're miles away," Karen said, sipping water from a small crystal cup. "You look like you just saw a ghost." "I saw a queen," Ethan replied, forcing a smile. "And she might have heard my thoughts." Karen raised an eyebrow. And I think she enjoyed it," Ethan admitted quietly, unsure why he was confessing this. He knew it was inappropriate to feel anything beyond professional duty toward the ruler of an alien species. Yet the honesty felt necessary. "Just don't get too close," Karen warned. "We don't know what she's capable of. The Rhinathi are dangerous." Ethan nodded but did not feel reassured. There was something about Sarai that went beyond danger, a subtle awareness that made him feel understood even when unspoken. The following day, Ethan returned to the council chamber. Negotiations resumed, this time with more detail about the alliance. Humans sought permission to establish a scientific outpost on Velith Prime. The Rhinathi Council responded cautiously, discussing resource allocation, security, and trade routes. Ethan translated carefully, knowing that one wrong word could cause offense. As the discussion progressed, he noticed subtle glances from the Queen. Her ears flicked with every pause he made, and her tail twitched when he hesitated. Ethan realized that Sarai was not just listening to his words. She was listening to him entirely. His thoughts, his intentions, even his fears seemed to ripple outward, reaching her senses. During a brief break, Ethan wandered alone into a balcony overlooking the desert dunes. He leaned against the crystalline railing and exhaled slowly. The twin suns glared off the sands, making the world below shimmer like gold. For a moment, he allowed himself to relax, letting his mind wander. "I wonder what she thinks of me," he whispered under his breath. The voice behind him was smooth, melodic, and unmistakable. "I think you are more interesting than you realize, human." Ethan spun around. Queen Sarai had appeared silently, her movements fluid, almost feline. She stepped onto the balcony with a grace that seemed to defy gravity. Her golden fur glistened in the sunlight, and her amber eyes studied him with curiosity. I didn't expect you to be here," Ethan said, trying to sound calm. "Do you think I would miss what you whispered?" she asked softly, her voice carrying amusement. Words can travel far, but thoughts travel farther. Ethan swallowed hard. I was careful. I thought no one could hear. Her tail brushed lightly against the balcony floor, a subtle display of elegance and control. You underestimated me, she said. But you are honest, and honesty is rare among humans. Ethan could feel his heart pounding. The proximity of the Queen, the warmth in her presence, and the softness of her words made him both nervous and exhilarated. He tried to focus on his training. I will always be honest with you, Your Majesty, he said carefully. Sarai's ears flicked in approval. Good. Honesty can save lives, human. And sometimes, it can change them. She stepped closer, her gaze steady. Do you understand what I mean? Ethan nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure. I think so. For several moments, they simply stood there, the wind from the desert brushing past them. Ethan could feel her attention as if it were a physical presence, warm and almost protective. He realized with a sudden clarity that this queen was unlike any being he had ever met. She was not just intelligent or powerful. She was attuned to him in a way that made him feel seen. As the sun began to dip behind the dunes, casting long shadows across the citadel, the queen spoke again. Ethan, humans often think themselves invisible when they speak quietly. Yet even the softest voice can carry truth. You have spoken truth, and I have heard it. That is why I will allow you closer than others. Ethan felt a mixture of pride and fear. Closer meant trust, but it also meant vulnerability. He nodded, knowing words were insufficient to convey his thoughts. Over the next several days, Ethan's role as translator brought him increasingly into Sarai's presence. The council meetings were tense, often interrupted by disputes over trade and territorial claims. Yet Sarai always insisted that Ethan remain nearby. She asked for his opinions, sometimes testing his judgment in hypothetical scenarios, and he realized that she valued his perspective in a way no one else had. One afternoon, during a private discussion in the Queen's library, Ethan finally found the courage to speak more freely. The library was a vast chamber filled with crystal shelves, each holding illuminated scrolls and devices of alien origin. The air smelled faintly of ozone and warm metal, a scent unique to the palace. Your Majesty, Ethan began cautiously. I hope I am not overstepping, but I admire the way you lead your people. I've studied reports, but being here, seeing it, it's incredible. Sarai's ears twitched and her tail curled slightly. You are brave to speak so openly, human, she said, her voice almost a whisper. Many fear to offend or to be wrong. You risk both and choose honesty. That is rare. Ethan felt a small smile. I only wish I could understand more. Your culture, your people, there is so much I don't know. And you will, Sarai replied. She leaned closer, tilting her head. I will help you understand. But remember, honesty, always. Even in whispers, I hear everything. Ethan nodded, aware that her words were both a warning and an invitation. He felt the tension between fear and fascination growing stronger each day. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He replayed the moments with the Queen over and over, wondering how much she truly knew of his thoughts, of his feelings. He also worried about the humans' intentions. Some officers whispered among themselves, distrustful of the Renathi, while others plotted how to gain advantage from the alliance. Ethan had to navigate these waters carefully, protecting both sides from misunderstanding. The next day brought an unexpected challenge. One of the human officers, Lieutenant Garrett Hughes, approached Ethan during a council recess. Cole, I need your help, Garrett said urgently. Some of our people are planning to acquire a Renathi device without permission. You need to stop them. Ethan's stomach tightened. That is extremely risky, he said. If the Queen finds out, I know, Garrett replied, but we cannot allow them to fail. You have access, Cole. You're the only one who can prevent a disaster. Ethan realized the situation was far more complicated than he had anticipated. Protecting the Queen meant defying his own people, and failing the humans meant risking his position and possibly more. Later, as he returned to the council hall, he spotted Sarai observing him from her seat. Her eyes met his, sharp and knowing. Ethan froze. He could almost feel her mind brushing against his thoughts, sensing the conflict, the uncertainty, and the worry. Do not hide from me, human, she said softly, her voice carrying across the hall though she did not rise. I hear what you fear even when you do not speak it. Trust is delicate. Use it wisely. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her presence pressing gently against him, not threatening but demanding attention. He knew that the coming days would test him in ways he had not imagined. By the time the meetings ended that evening, Ethan understood one clear truth. His mission was no longer only about diplomacy or translation. It was about survival, honesty, and understanding. The Queen's words echoed in his mind again, soft but insistent. "Careful, human. I hear everything." He realized that every whisper, every thought, every hesitation mattered now, and he also understood, with a quiet thrill, that he would not be the same human who had first stepped onto Velith Prime. Something had changed. He was a participant in a game of minds and wills, one where the stakes were not only political, but deeply personal. And in the stillness of the night, as he looked toward the glowing crystal towers of the Citadel, Ethan made a silent promise to himself. He would be honest. He would be careful, and he would survive, whatever that might cost him. The days on Velith Prime grew tense. Lieutenant Ethan Cole found himself moving like a shadow through the crystalline halls of the Citadel, balancing the needs of humans and Renathi alike. Every word he spoke, every action he took felt like a tightrope walk. One misstep could ignite conflict or destroy trust. The humans' request for a scientific outpost had been met with cautious approval by Queen Sarai, but many Renathi council members were skeptical. Some whispered that humans could not be trusted, that they would steal secrets or provoke conflict. Ethan had to translate not just words but intentions, reading the subtle layers of meaning that hid behind formal diplomacy. During one council session, a senior Renathi advisor, Lord Vareth, spoke with sharp authority. "We cannot risk our technology falling into human hands. They are unpredictable, emotional. Our alliance may be beneficial, but it carries great danger." Ethan translated carefully to the human delegation. Lord Vareth warns of potential risks. He believes humans may act without full understanding of consequences. The humans murmured uneasily. Commander Lena Harris leaned over Ethan, whispering, "Keep calm, Cole. This is standard caution. Do not let them see you flinch." Ethan nodded, trying to hide the tension rising in his chest. As he spoke, he felt the Queen's gaze upon him. Sarai's amber eyes were steady, calm, yet searching. He could almost feel her hearing the tiny anxieties in his mind, the doubts he did not dare voice aloud. After the session, Ethan lingered in the council chamber. He needed to process the warning, but more than that, he needed a moment to collect himself. The hall was empty now except for the soft hum of the crystal walls. And then he heard the familiar, smooth voice behind him. "You are under great pressure, human," Queen Sarai said. She appeared from the shadows as if she had been there all along. "Do not let it cloud your judgment. I am trying," Ethan replied, keeping his voice steady. "It is difficult. The humans want results, the council is wary, and I am caught in the middle." Sarai stepped closer, her tail curling softly behind her. "And yet you navigate this position with honesty and care. That is why I allow you near me, Ethan. Few could survive such scrutiny with grace." Ethan felt a small flicker of pride, quickly replaced by worry. "I hope I do not fail," he admitted. "You may falter," she said gently, "but honesty will protect you more than deceit. Even when others act wrongly, the truth can guide your steps." That evening, the first serious incident occurred. Security alerts rang through the human quarters. Ethan was called immediately. A small group of human officers had attempted to access restricted areas of the Citadel, hoping to study Renathi devices without permission. Their plan had been discovered, and the palace guards were ready to detain them. Ethan's stomach twisted. He knew the humans' intentions were selfish, but not malicious. If the Queen learned of the breach directly, it could destroy trust. He rushed to the scene, his communicator buzzing. "This is Lieutenant Cole. Stop any confrontation. I will speak with the Queen." The guards hesitated as Ethan approached. Queen Sarai arrived moments later, moving with her usual grace. Her eyes scanned the group of human officers and then locked on Ethan. "Explain," she said, her voice firm but calm. Ethan stepped forward. "Your Majesty, they acted without approval. They wanted to study devices, to gain knowledge. I stopped them before any harm occurred. I am responsible for their actions." The Queen's ears twitched and she studied him carefully. "You were aware of their intentions?" she asked. "Yes, Your Majesty," Ethan said. "I tried to prevent it, but I could not guarantee the plan would fail without intervention." Sarai's tail flicked sharply. The guards watched her every movement, tense. "You take responsibility for them," she said. "Do you understand what this means?" I do, Ethan replied. I am prepared to face consequences if necessary. The council was called to witness Ethan's testimony. Humans and Renathi alike observed the proceedings. Ethan stood before the Queen, his heart steady even as tension hung in the air like a storm cloud. Lieutenant Cole speaks truth, Sarai declared. He prevented a serious breach. He has been honest even under pressure. Therefore, he will not be punished. But let this be a lesson to all. Honesty and care are more valuable than boldness without thought. Ethan felt relief wash over him. The humans he protected looked at him with mixed emotions: gratitude, guilt, and unease. He had succeeded, but at a cost: the burden of navigating loyalty to two very different sides. In the days that followed, his connection to Sarai deepened. She called him to private sessions, discussing hypothetical scenarios, political strategy, and even personal philosophy. Ethan realized that the Queen's wisdom extended far beyond rulership. She understood motivations, intentions, and emotions in a way humans rarely did. One afternoon, Ethan found himself in the palace gardens, a terrace suspended high above the dunes. The desert winds swept across the platform, carrying the scent of minerals and crystal dust. Sarai joined him silently, her presence immediately commanding attention. "You carry burdens," she observed softly, watching the wind play with his hair. "Human burdens are heavy. Do you share them willingly, or are they forced upon you?" Ethan considered his answer. "Both, Your Majesty," he admitted. "I want to protect my people, but I also want to do what is right here. Sometimes I'm not sure what that is." Sarai tilted her head, her golden eyes reflecting sunlight. "The right choice is rarely clear. That is why honesty matters. It allows you to act with intention, not fear, and it allows others to trust you even when you are imperfect." Ethan felt a strange warmth at her words. They were more than advice. They were recognition of his struggle, a validation of his position. Later, the humans held a private meeting, expressing frustration with the Queen's patience and her willingness to trust Ethan. Ethan tried to mediate, translating their concerns while reminding them of the importance of diplomacy and caution. "Sarai has allowed us an opportunity," he said carefully. "We must honor that. Any reckless actions will not only jeopardize the alliance but risk war." Some officers scoffed, but Ethan stood firm. He could feel the Queen's presence in the back of his mind, her attention like a silent shield guiding him. Her soft warning echoed again. "Careful, human. I hear everything." Weeks passed, and Ethan began to notice subtle changes in Sarai. She asked for his opinions not only on diplomacy, but on human culture, philosophy, and even humor. They shared moments of quiet conversation, often in private chambers or secluded gardens. She listened intently, not just to his words but to the intention behind them. During one such conversation, Ethan whispered something about the beauty of the desert dunes at sunset. Sarai's ears twitched, her eyes softening. "You see what others overlook," she said. "That is why I trust you, and that is why you must remain careful. Not all eyes are kind, human. Some see your honesty as weakness. Others see it as a threat." Ethan realized then that the Queen's ability to hear more than words was not just power, it was responsibility. She could sense truth, detect deceit, and understand motives that would escape even the sharpest human mind. And in this world, that made every action, every whisper, every thought potentially dangerous. That night, Ethan lay awake in the human quarters thinking about the Queen, the humans, and the fragile balance he was maintaining. He understood that diplomacy on Velith Prime was more than negotiation. It was a dance of awareness, trust, and restraint. One misstep could destroy everything. But he also understood something else. Sarai was unlike any leader he had ever encountered. She was not merely powerful or intelligent. She was aware in ways humans could barely comprehend. She could hear intentions, sense honesty, and perceive the heart behind actions. And he, a simple human, was navigating this world alongside her. Ethan resolved to continue his mission with honesty, care, and vigilance. He would protect both sides, prevent conflict, and honor the fragile trust he had earned. And he would remember always the Queen's soft, powerful words that had first reached him. "Careful, human. I hear everything." The desert outside glowed under the twin moons, and Ethan knew the challenges ahead would test him further. But for the first time, he also felt a quiet determination and a sense of purpose. Whatever came next, he would face it with honesty, courage, and awareness. the only way to survive in the presence of Queen Sarai. The following morning began with an unusual tension in the Citadel. Lieutenant Ethan Cole woke to the sound of alarms echoing faintly through the corridors. He hurried to the command center, his heart racing. Something was wrong. "Report," Commander Lena Harris demanded as Ethan entered. "Security breach," Ethan said quickly. "Some unauthorized human personnel have accessed a restricted area in the outer sections of the Citadel. I am heading there now to assess." "Be careful," Harris warned. "We cannot afford a mistake here. The Queen's patience is a thin line, and the Council is already uneasy." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He knew that if the Renathi discovered any tampering with their technology, the Alliance could collapse instantly. And he also knew that his fellow humans were responsible for the breach, putting him in a dangerous position between loyalty to his people and loyalty to the Queen. As he arrived at the outer section of the Citadel, he found a group of human officers attempting to access one of the Renathi research chambers. Their equipment was clumsy, and the alarms had already triggered. Ethan stepped forward, raising his voice. "Stop! You cannot do this!" he shouted. The officers froze. "Cole, we just need a sample," one of them said nervously. "We'll be quick. No harm done." Ethan shook his head firmly. "You are risking everything. The Queen cannot allow this." "Put the equipment down now." Before the situation could escalate further, Renathi guards appeared silently, surrounding the group. Ethan's stomach twisted. The officers looked panicked, and he could feel the weight of Sarai's presence approaching. Queen Sarai arrived with a silent grace that made the air feel heavier. Her golden eyes glinted with controlled anger. "Explain," she commanded, her voice carrying across the chamber like a sharp wind. Ethan stepped forward immediately. "Your Majesty, they attempted to access restricted chambers. I stopped them before anything could be taken. I take full responsibility for their actions. Please, I did what I could to prevent harm." The Queen's ears twitched sharply. She studied him for several long moments, as if reaching into his mind to confirm his words. Ethan held his breath, aware that even a small lie would be immediately detected. "You were aware of their plan?" she asked softly but firmly. "Yes, Your Majesty," Ethan said. "I tried to prevent it. I could not let them succeed. I did not want to betray your trust." Sarai's tail flicked sharply behind her. She turned her gaze toward the human officers. "You endanger everything with reckless action," she said. "This could have led to war. You will answer for your choice. But the human who prevented disaster, he will not be punished." The officers looked shocked. Ethan felt a mix of relief and unease. The Queen's decision was merciful but made the gravity of his position even clearer. He was the bridge between two very different worlds, responsible for their survival and trust. Later, Ethan was summoned to a private chamber in the heart of the palace. Sarai waited, seated gracefully on a crystalline bench, her posture relaxed yet commanding. "You did well," she said softly, her amber eyes watching him closely. "You prevented catastrophe when others would have acted without thought." Ethan bowed slightly. "I only did what I thought was right, Your Majesty." Her ears twitched. "Intentions matter, but results matter more, and the Council will be watching you closely now. You must navigate carefully. One mistake, and the balance you have preserved will collapse." Ethan nodded, feeling the full weight of responsibility. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will be careful." Sarai leaned forward slightly. "Careful, yes, but also aware. You must see more than what is obvious. Watch the humans, watch the Council, and watch yourself. Every word, every action has meaning here." The gravity of her words sank into Ethan's mind. He realized that diplomacy on Velith Prime was not only about words. It was about perception, awareness, and the careful balance of honesty and strategy. That evening, Ethan walked through the palace gardens to clear his mind. The desert wind brushed against him, carrying the faint scent of crystal dust and warm minerals. He thought about the humans he served and the Queen he protected. Every decision had consequences, and he felt the invisible weight of all of them pressing against his chest. As he walked, Sarai appeared silently beside him. "Do you see the desert?" she asked, her voice gentle. Ethan nodded. Yes, it is beautiful. Many overlook beauty, she said, her amber eyes scanning the horizon. They are too focused on survival, power, or gain. You notice it. That is why I trust you. Ethan felt a mix of pride and apprehension. I only want to do right, he said. And you will, human, Sarai replied. But right is not always easy. And sometimes it is not clear. That is why you must listen, and watch, and think. The next morning, a meeting of both human and Rhinathi leaders was called to discuss the recent security breach. Tensions ran high, and Ethan translated every word with extreme care. The humans apologized for the unauthorized actions, while the Rhinathi Council debated appropriate consequences. During the meeting, a Rhinathi ambassador, Sirath, spoke sharply. We cannot tolerate such recklessness. Humans claim to act for good, but their impulsive nature endangers us all. Ethan translated carefully to the human delegation. Sirath says that human impulsiveness threatens trust and stability. We must respond with caution, the humans murmured uneasily. Commander Harris leaned over to Ethan and whispered, Keep control of the room, Cole. Calm them down. Ethan nodded and addressed both sides. We understand the concern. The humans involved have been warned, and further action will be prevented. Lieutenant Cole personally supervised to ensure no harm occurred. We are committed to trust and cooperation. Sarai watched him closely. Her ears twitched, and her tail curled slightly. Ethan could feel her assessment, silent but powerful. He realized again that she could sense his honesty and intentions in a way humans could not. After the meeting, Ethan was summoned once more to the Queen's private chambers. Sarai stood by the window, looking out at the desert. You managed a difficult situation, she said. But understand this, not everyone will see your actions as noble. Some will resent your influence, some will fear it. I understand, Your Majesty, Ethan replied. I will remain careful, aware, and honest. Sarai turned to face him fully. Good. Remember this always. Even whispers carry weight here. Even silent intentions are visible to those who listen closely. You survived today because you acted with care and honesty. That is your strength. Ethan felt a deep respect for the Queen growing inside him. She was not only powerful and wise, but she had a perception that surpassed anything he had known. Her guidance was subtle but firm, shaping him into someone who could navigate impossible situations. In the days that followed, Ethan continued, his role as translator and liaison, balancing human ambitions with Rhinathi caution. He grew more aware of subtleties in speech, gesture, and tone. Even a glance could carry meaning. Even a pause could hide a secret. He became vigilant, constantly analyzing, anticipating, and adjusting. One evening, Sarai summoned him to a balcony overlooking the desert dunes. The twin suns had set, casting a soft golden glow across the sands. You have done well, she said softly. But challenges are not over. There will be those who seek to test you, to use you, to manipulate you. You must remain aware, human. Trust only those who have proven their honesty and always listen to your instincts. Ethan nodded. I will, Your Majesty. Sarai's amber eyes softened. And remember this, even when I am silent, I hear. Every thought, every intention, every whisper, that is the gift and the burden of awareness. Be careful, human. The next test may be closer than you think. Ethan watched the dunes, feeling the weight of her words. He realized that the real challenges were just beginning. He had survived the first confrontation, but the balance of trust, honesty, and danger on Velith Prime was fragile. One wrong move, one misinterpreted word could unravel everything he had worked for. And as the night deepened, he felt a quiet determination settle within him. He would face the coming trials with honesty, courage, and awareness. The only way to navigate a world where whispers could carry truth, and where a single human could influence the fate of two species. Ethan understood finally that the bond he was forming with Queen Sarai was not just about trust but survival. It was a connection that went beyond words, beyond politics, into something deeper. A shared understanding that could shape the future of both humans and Renathi alike. The desert winds blew softly around them, carrying the faint scent of crystal and sand. And Ethan, standing beside the Queen, realized that he was no longer just a translator or observer. He was a participant in a game of strategy, loyalty, and perception. And he would survive it no matter what it took. The tension in the Citadel had not fully dissipated. Even after the incident with the human officers, whispers and glances persisted among both humans and Renathi. Ethan Cole knew the fragile peace they had achieved could be broken by the smallest misstep. And yet, in the quiet moments with Queen Sarai, he began to feel something new. Trust, understanding, and perhaps even something deeper. That morning, the council convened once more to finalize the terms of the alliance. Humans would establish a limited scientific outpost on Velith Prime under strict supervision, with Renathi oversight at every stage. It was a compromise, one that satisfied few but avoided open conflict. Ethan translated carefully, ensuring that no words were misrepresented and that intentions were clear. Queen Sarai presided over the meeting with her usual grace. Her golden eyes scanned both delegations, her ears twitching at every subtle inflection, every unspoken thought. Ethan noticed how she seemed almost to read the room, predicting tensions before they could surface. He felt grateful for her guidance, but aware that the weight of responsibility rested heavily on him. After the meeting, Ethan was called to a private chamber in the Citadel. Sarai awaited him, seated on a crystalline bench, the light from the desert outside casting patterns across her fur. "You have done well," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "You have balanced truth, loyalty, and caution. Not many could do what you have done and survive unscathed." Ethan bowed slightly. "I only tried to do what was right, Your Majesty. I could not let anyone be harmed, and I could not betray your trust." Sarai's amber eyes softened. "And yet you did not falter. That is why I trust you. That is why you are here, even now with me. Your honesty has value beyond what you realize." Ethan felt warmth in her words, but also the quiet pressure of responsibility. "Your trust means more than I can say, Your Majesty. I will continue to honor it no matter what comes." Sarai stood and moved closer to him, her tail swaying gracefully. "Then listen carefully, human. The alliance is established, but threats remain. There are those who resent cooperation, on both sides. You must remain vigilant. And yet," she paused, her gaze softening in a way Ethan had rarely seen, "there is more than duty between us. You have spoken truth, you have acted with care, and you have proven yourself. That cannot be ignored." Ethan's breath caught. He had trained for diplomacy, strategy, and crisis management, but nothing had prepared him for the subtle, quiet connection he felt now. The Queen's words were not formal or commanding. They carried a personal weight that resonated deep in him. I do not know what to say, Your Majesty," he admitted. "I am only human. I try to do what is right, and I fail often. But I feel the same connection you speak of." Sarai's ears twitched, her tail brushing lightly against the crystalline floor. "Then we understand each other, human. Not fully, perhaps, but enough to know that honesty, trust, and care are the foundation of all that matters here. And that is rare, even among kings, queens, and humans alike." That afternoon, Ethan led a group of humans on a tour of the newly approved outpost site. Renathi guards accompanied them, observing every action carefully. The humans moved with caution, aware of their previous mistakes. Ethan translated both spoken words and intentions, ensuring clarity and transparency. As they walked, Ethan noticed Sarai watching from a distance. She stood atop a crystal balcony, her golden eyes following his movements. For a moment, he felt the same mixture of tension and reassurance he had felt from the very first day. Her awareness seemed to stretch across the courtyard, protective and attentive. Later, during a private moment in the Citadel, Sarai summoned Ethan once again. She led him to a secluded balcony overlooking the desert. The twin suns were low, casting long shadows across the golden dunes. The air was quiet except for the soft hum of the citadel's crystals. "You have proven yourself beyond expectation," she said softly. "But there is one final lesson, human. Trust and loyalty are not only acts. They are bonds that shape reality. You have forged such a bond with me, and that will influence more than just the Council or the humans. It will influence the future of both our peoples." Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose and responsibility. "I will honor that bond, Your Majesty. I will protect it, and I will protect you and your people to the best of my ability." Sarai's amber eyes softened further. "And I will protect you as well, not because of duty, but because your actions and your truth have earned it. You are remarkable, human, more than any report, more than any expectation." Ethan felt a warmth he had never known. He realized that the Queen's words were more than praise. They were an acknowledgement of his existence, his courage, and his humanity. He felt a connection that transcended politics, transcended language, and even transcended species. As the days passed, the alliance solidified. Humans and Rhinathi began cooperative projects, carefully monitored but productive. Ethan worked tirelessly, translating, advising, and preventing misunderstandings. Yet he also found moments to speak privately with Sarai, sharing thoughts, questions, and even humor. Their connection deepened, a silent understanding forming between them that went beyond words. One evening, the Queen invited Ethan to the palace's highest tower. From there they could see the desert stretching endlessly, golden under the fading light of the setting suns. "Do you understand now why I warned you to be careful?" Sarai asked. "Every word, every thought, every action matters. And yet, honesty has carried you this far." Ethan nodded. "I understand, and I have learned that truth is stronger than fear, and that courage is measured not by battle, but by integrity." Sarai's ears twitched, and her tail swayed slowly. "Then you are ready, human. Ready to face what comes next, whatever it may be." In that moment, Ethan felt a quiet resolve. He knew challenges would continue, threats would arise, and decisions would test him. But he also knew that he was not alone. He had earned the Queen's trust, and she had acknowledged his courage, his honesty, and his presence. Later, as they stood on the balcony, the Queen's voice dropped to a soft murmur. "Do you remember your first words here? The whisper I heard?" Ethan smiled faintly, recalling the moment vividly. "I said, 'Nothing important, just an observation.'" Sarai stepped closer, her amber eyes gleaming. "It was more than an observation. It was honesty, it was truth. And it reached me, human. That is why you are here now." Ethan felt a sense of peace he had not known since arriving on Velith Prime. He realized that the bond they had formed, built on honesty, care, and awareness, was stronger than any political alliance or technological advantage. It was something human and alien alike could rely on. As the twin suns set completely, leaving the desert bathed in the soft glow of the moons, Ethan spoke quietly. "Your Majesty, I wish I could have met you sooner." Sarai's ears flicked, and a soft purr escaped her throat. "Careful, human. I still hear everything." Ethan laughed softly, a sound of relief and joy. "Then I hope you heard what I truly meant." Sarai's tail brushed against his hand, a subtle but deliberate gesture of acknowledgement. "I did," she said, her voice gentle, "and I understand. That is enough." The night deepened around them, but the light of the moons reflected off the crystalline towers of the citadel. The alliance between humans and Rhinathi had been solidified, not only through diplomacy but through trust and courage. And in that quiet, shared understanding, a bond had formed, one that could guide both species toward a future neither had imagined before. Ethan knew that his role on Velith Prime was not finished. Challenges would continue, dangers would arise, and difficult choices would test his resolve. But he also knew that he had earned the trust and respect of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And that trust was a foundation stronger than any weapon, stronger than any technology, stronger than fear. As he stood beside Queen Sarai, the desert stretching endlessly before them, Ethan realized that he was no longer just a human observer. He was a participant in shaping history, a bridge between species and a keeper of truth. And he understood fully that honesty, courage, and awareness could change the fate of worlds. The night air was cool, the stars reflected in the crystals around them. And in that moment, human and queen, listener and speaker, warrior and diplomat, stood together, ready to face whatever the future might bring, together.